I would put overuse of social media as one of the primary dangers of tween and teen life right now.
That is Dr. Michael Gurian, a renowned therapist and author who compares the overuse of social media to nicotine addiction because it affects the way dopamine works in a developing brain. It is why the Seattle School District is now suing major tech companies, accusing them of hooking young people on their platforms and creating a mental health crisis.
But how big of a problem is overuse of social media for kids, and what can we as parents do about it? I dove into the social media effect to find answers.
Social media has become a part of our everyday lives. We spend a fair amount of time each day scrolling through our feeds, but our kids spend even more.
The Instagram was a big one. Snapchat. They loved Snapchat.
Jill Royston is a Spokane mom. When she first gave her daughters smartphones, they disappear into their rooms for hours at a time, and their phones quickly became their everything.
It can be a tool for immense power, having the world at your fingertips, but it can also be a shadow side.
Soon, seeing glamorous pictures she couldn't live up to or posts about all the fun things she was missing out on became too much for Royston's youngest daughter to handle.
She would give me her phone physically and be like, you got to take this. Like, she recognized it was affecting her mental health, kind of her physical health. Like, she was getting to a place where she didn't necessarily want to go to school.
Lisa Renner and Alana DePaulo see this social media effect all too often at Shadle Park High School, where they work as counselors.
I'd say over the last 15 years, there's been a progression of anxiety and depression that I see in, my practice at the schools I've been at. And I would say it's getting worse. It really kind of impacts how students see themselves and how they see their life and their reality too.
DePaulo says social media and isolation during COVID have made it hard for a lot of kids to have face-to-face conversations.
They'll be happy to send an email, a text. They'll do anything they can behind a screen instead of having to sit and have a conversation with someone. That's terrifying to a lot of students.
The content of what they can find on social media can also be terrifying. Anything from drugs to pornography to eating disorders.
So you want to learn how to be anorexic, you just hop online. TikTok is their role modeling. It's a lot of stimulation.
And too much stimulation can become like a nicotine addiction, says Spokane therapist and author Dr. Michael Gurian. He says each time our kids look at social media, it's flooding their still developing brains with dopamine.
And it happens 20, 50, 100, 500 times a day, depending on how they use it. And that's really the problem. So the brain rewires, and it does not wire toward normal development. It rewires, and that rewiring is what we're seeing with depression, anxiety, and all sorts of other issues.
Dr. Gurian begs parents not to give kids smartphones or access to social media until they're at least 14 or 15, not only because of that rewiring of the brain, but the feelings social media can cause.
That sense of inadequacy that we ruminate on because we don't fit. And then the negative, the spending all the time on the negative and ruminating on that. Which feels like disaster, and disaster is constantly around the corner.
He says putting parental controls on your kid's phone is a must and believes parents should be checking their online activity often.
Parents have an absolute right to check that. They have to protect their kids. We just trump the privacy over that these days because we don't realize how dangerous this stuff is.
The counselors agree and would remind parents that they own the phones, not their kids.
It's a privilege, not a right. And so you have the right to shut down the Wi-Fi. You have the right to take the phone.
I think that parents need to take their kids' phones more often. And I'm not saying for weeks at a time. I'm saying, hey, we're gonna go do this, phones off. Hey, we're having dinner, there's no phones at the table.
What have you been doing for the last couple hours? And they're like, oh.
Jill Royston now wishes she'd waited until her daughters were older before allowing them on social media. She believes parents need to understand the different platforms and have an honest, open dialogue with their kids.
Just being able to say, I am worried about you. Do you know how quickly this picture can spread? I don't know. I'm a big believer in that dialogue and helping young people become informed young people so that they can make the best decisions for themselves.
Learning to live with social media isn't easy, but parents have to do all they can to protect kids from its dangers.
Now, Dr. Gurian says if you do take your kid's phone away, they'll definitely be angry for the first few weeks, but in time, he believes they'll likely thank you for it.
And right now on KXLY.com, we have some additional videos on the social media effect, including Dr. Gurian's tips for digital hygiene and how to know if overuse of social media is negatively affecting your child. And we are continuing the discussion on this topic throughout the day. Send your questions to us, and our digital anchor, Rob King, will be live at 7:30 tonight, leading a discussion about the social media effect, including what signs to look for if your child is addicted and how it can affect their health.
And we also want to hear what concerns you have about social media. Head to KXLY.com to submit your questions, and we will take them to the experts for you.
This is integral.
Yeah, it's a really important topic for families.